We're going to talk about isosceles and equilateral triangles today. Okay, so a bunch of this is stuff that you should know. Yeah, right, you should know that. Okay. So some of this is stuff you should know, such as an acute angle or acute triangle. An acute triangle means that all the angles are less than 90 degrees, right? A right triangle means that it has one 90-degree angle. An obtuse triangle means that it has an angle greater than 90 degrees. An equilateral triangle means all sides are congruent and all three angles are congruent. So what would all three angles be then?
60.
60. Yeah. An isosceles triangle, at least two congruent sides, at least two congruent angles. And a scalene triangle, no congruent sides, no congruent angles. You're going to have to classify triangles by these terms. Okay, that should be pretty simple. Okay.
How's your day going, Spirit?
It's going good if everybody's phones were actually in those pouches like it should be.
Oh, man.
I guess we just have to mark cards.
Can we put them in now?
What the heck?
My phone's I
keep
can't get it any out.
Oh,
I can't
God.
do anything on my phone.
Especially since I just heard one buzz.
It wasn't me. I don't get text messages.
I
just spiked my phone at the floor.
Oh, I only don't.
I don't know how to construct a parallel. I did
did
that on a
Going up
compass
to
or
tier 5.
Margaret flew out of my hand and I tried to pound it.
Nice.
You have a compass?
Yes.
Do you change your Apple Watch?
And a protractor.
Boom.
Yes.
Okay. So, it's fine. I don't know that I can make this so that it fits on here, right?
Okay.
It's all separate stuff. Okay. So it says the measure of angle B is 4 times the measure of angle A, and the measure of angle A is 20 degrees. What type of triangle is triangle ABC? Sketch the triangle.
Okay.
So what do I need to do?
You need to times 20 by 4.
It's an obtuse.
What do I need to do first?
You need to do
Draw a
4 times 20
triangle.
to figure out what the angle
What,
is.
Abby?
You say 4x plus x equals 180.
The measure of angle B is 4 times the measure of angle A. Measure of angle A is 20 degrees. What type of triangle is ABC? Sketch the triangle.
Oh, wait.
X plus 20 equals 180.
It's obtuse. Obtuse. No, it's
What
not
point?
an obtuse
You
triangle.
do, I think this is right. I think you do,
It's not. I
4 x plus x plus x equals 180, and then you do substitution for 20, and then it'd be 4x plus 20 plus x equals 180, and then it'd be 5x plus 20 equals 180, and then it'd be 5x equals 160, and then that divided by 5.
You guys, you're making this hard.
Do
Oh, look at that, Alex.
and then add that. And then
Yes.
add those two and then add it.
Brandon said that. I said that like 5 minutes.
But that's not what you have to do first. What does it say to do first?
Sketch it.
Sketch it.
I said
And you
draw a
guys
triangle.
refuse to draw in this class.
It's math class.
I draw diagrams for everything.
Yes, you should. Okay, so I want to sketch a triangle. I know that B is 4 times A. I know A is 20. That means angle B is what?
80.
80. So angle A is 20. Angle B is 80. What does that make angle C?
80.
I saw some cute.
So what type of triangle is it? Isosceles.
So you.
So 2 sides are the same, right?
Yeah, and then the third side.
I don't know. I'm not good at sketching things. Pretend those are
How can you sketch before you?
You just say it's not drawn.
Yeah.
Okay. A, B, C, whatever.
Come on. Where my
Just pretend I'm
markers
good
go?
at drawing.
You were very
But
good.
now
And
you'll
then 4
understand.
times, yeah.
Caleb said.
4 times 20 is 80. 4 times 2 is 8.
Wait, did you make the sketch first?
A's on its side.
No, he said before an 80, so he's sketching.
I'm gonna work it out on the marker.
I always sketch mine first and then just label it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, based on its sides, what type of triangle is triangle ABC? Use the distance formula and the slope formula.
Nope.
It's a cute.
Time out. I said, use the distance formula and the sub formula, because you can't just look at it and tell me, you have to give me math behind it.
I'm doing
I can.
So, how many distance formulas are you gonna give me?
Two.
Three.
Three.
How many sub formulas are you gonna give me? Yeah, so you have work to do.
That's 2 words.
How many midpoints? Three? I mean, so?
So, the side AB, let's start there, AB equals, what's the distance for AB?
AB.
A is what?
Negative 2, 3.
Negative 2, 3, what's B?
0, 0.
Okay, what's C?
6, 4.
Okay, so we're gonna use these and we're gonna do distance formula 3 times and we're gonna do midpoint formula 3 times. So, what's the distance formula? Square root of what?
Parentheses x2
X2
minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1
So,
squared.
negative 2 minus 0 squared plus 3 minus 0 squared. What's negative 2 squared for? 3 squared is 9. So I have 4 plus 9, right?
Yeah.
Which is the square root of?
13.
Okay, now let's find AB's slope. How do you find slope?
Oh, you do the y minus y,
Y minus
y over x minus x.
So you get 3 over 2.
Yes.
Okay, now let's do BC. BC is?
No, you don't get 3 over 2. You get 3 over negative 2.
No, you don't. Oh, because it's a negative 2. My bad, I missed something there. Negative 3 seconds. Okay. Now BC would be 0 minus 6 squared. Yes, plus 0 minus 4 squared. What's 6 squared? What's 4 squared?
6
Yeah, 16. So 6 and 6 is 12. Good, radical 52. Now BC's not midpoint, why do I keep saying that? Slope. Should be 4 minus 0 over 6 minus 0, so 4 over 6, which is 2/3. Okay, now AC. Square root of negative 2 minus 6 squared plus 3 minus 4 squared. Okay, negative 2, negative 6 is negative 8. What's negative 8 squared? And 3 minus 4 is negative 1, so plus 1, right?
Yeah.
So square root of 65. Now, AC is 3 minus 4 over negative 2 minus 6. So negative 1 over negative 8. Yes?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm on.
So what type of triangle do you
Right
have?
triangle.
Right.
And why do you know it's a right triangle?
Because it's a negative reciprocal.
Negative reciprocal.
Boom, that's so smart, Brandon.
Okay, negative reciprocal.
Wait, what?
Do negative reciprocal.
Look at my
Negative
oh,
3
that.
seconds,
Oh.
2/3.
Why? I thought
So
they
a
were
right triangle.
I thought that it was negative reciprocal.
Your
Oh, I'm
board-
sorry. If they're both negative, then it becomes yeah.
Your board is
So on your homework, if you have a problem like this, I need all 3 worked out for both things.
Oh, I just go to
On your test or quiz, I need all 3 worked out for both things, because here's the deal. What happens if 2 of these come out to be the same distance?
Then you to do
What
that.
type of triangle do you have?
Isosceles.
Isosceles. What happens if all 3 come out to be the same distance?
Equilateral.
Okay, what happens if none of these are the same and none of these?
Scalene.
Okay, so that's why you've got to do all 3 every time.
Because that's a scalene.
No, it's
I
not.
mean isosceles.
Is it just a right, or could it be a right scalene?
How can it be a right? Where's the right angle on that thing?
What?
Right,
It's not drawn to scale.
It's not drawn.
It's a right scalene because all these distances are different.
Oh.
90 degrees.
So you classify triangles by 2 things. You classify them by their angle and their side
So it can be
length.
more than one.
Yes, so you can have a right scalene. You can have an obtuse, right, like,
Like a right upward.
There's a 90-degree angle.
No,
in
right
this.
no,
up
you can't have a right obtuse.
Where's the 90-degree angle?
It may not be
The
drawn to
90-degree
scale.
angle would be between AB and BC. It would be angle B.
Because it's negative reciprocal.
Yes.
So negative reciprocal means.
Yes.
Because
Correct.
they're parallel.
Oh, that means 90 degrees. Oh, and on our homework, is it okay to leave everything radical? If can't
You are
simplify?
going to leave it in radicals and you're going to reduce the radicals.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I checked.
You are not giving me decimal answers unless it tells you specifically. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 'cause I'm training you for algebra too, because Mr. Rice will make you reduce your radicals.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so then there are three theorems, that we need to talk about. Isosceles triangle theorem. If two sides of a triangle are congruent, then the angles opposite them are congruent. So AC right here is congruent to BC, so that means angle A and angle B are congruent. Okay? It's also called the base angles theorem, depending on what book you use, okay? Because the base angles are congruent because the sides are congruent.
Can you say that again?
Isosceles triangle theorem. If two sides of an isosceles triangle are congruent, then their angles opposite them are congruent.
Thank you.
Okay?
Why does it say it twice?
I'm not even working out.
Because it says if two angles of a triangle are congruent, then the sides opposite them are congruent. So it works backwards. It works both
It's like
ways.
Converse.
Yes,
Cool.
all in one. Okay? Then you have the isosceles bisector theorem. When something bisects, what does that mean?
Split on the
Splits it
middle.
in two.
Splits it in two. So the isosceles bisector theorem says if a line bisects an isosceles triangle vertex, the vertex, okay, then it is perpendicular bisector of the base. So I can make two right triangles out of this, okay? And so then I have side, angle, 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 side, angle, angle, side. We'll learn that later. And then the isosceles bisector theorem converse would say if a line is perpendicular bisector of an isosceles triangle's base, then it is also the angle bisector of the vertex. It works backwards. Okay, so isosceles bisector theorem tells me if it's coming from the vertex down to the base, it makes a right angle. And the converse tells me if it is a right angle from the base up through the vertex, it splits the vertex in half. Give you a minute or two.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the isosceles bisector theorem, why are the angle signs not lined up?
Because they're not.
Because they make it so that it doesn't look like it's one big
Okay.
angle. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Like they're still congruent because they're just one line, but they have to offset them so it doesn't look like it's just one angle that's talking about. That's why. Good question. I think we're gonna have one more theorem in a second.
That's it?
There's 9. There's 8 slides, I think, so we have 4 more to go.
Four more
Slides?
theorems?
No.
We'll just talk about the theorem.
I couldn't find these in the chapter part. I couldn't find these because I was trying.
They are in the chapter part, but this chapter is broken into 3 sections. This part is, like it goes,
Oh, because I saw example problems.
it goes
and I stopped.
examples, and then it goes 14 problems, then it goes to these, then it does, 1 more, and then it does 14 more problems or something like that. So it broke it into 2 sections, 3 sections. Okay. I'm about ready to change.
Isn't that, can you like not do that? Shouldn't I like do it that way? What? It's because I put yeet on my bicep.
You're not allowed to have tattoos.
It's washable.
Wait, let me see.
We'll find out tomorrow if we
Oh,
actually
yeah.
want it.
Okay.
Take a bite of that.
Let's see. Okay, what is the measure of angle A?
Oh, I know this.
32,
32.
90.
No.
32
Plus 90.
plus 90.
Plus x equals 1.
100.
100.
Be
100.
100.
That makes it
I think
one.
Gail's right.
That makes it.
Thank you.
58.
No, it's 68.
That's what I meant.
68.
No, it's 58.
It's 58.
It's 58.
It's
That's
58.
Last year.
Okay, it's 58, but do you understand how we get that?
Yes.
We know that angle B is 32, we add 90 to it, and we subtract it from 180, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, because it's a right triangle because of what theorem right now?
Isosceles bisector.
Isosceles bisector theorem.
That's what I was gonna say.
Isosceles bisector theorem, okay? Equilateral triangle theorems. If 3 sides of a triangle are congruent, then the angles opposite them are congruent.
It's the same thing.
If 3 angles of a triangle are congruent, then the sides opposite them are congruent. Yeah, it's like the same thing, except for you have to have this in a proof.
No.
You have to be able to tell me isosceles or equilateral triangle if you're in a proof, when you need to prove that things are congruent.
So.
Because we're gonna start to do lots of proofs with triangles.
So we have to look at. Okay, you shouldn't be kidding me.
Okay, so that's why you need to know these terms.
You shouldn't run
Okay, look at this bottom part while you're thinking here. It says the figure is a rhombus. What are measure of angle A and measure of angle ABC? Let's, we can label it. Let's label it.
Yeah.
What do you want to label? How do you want to label it? Does it matter?
A, B,
Okay.
C.
So if you label it A, B, C, D, they want to know what's the measure of angle A and what's the measure of angle ABC. How can I figure that out? What do you know about rhombus? About a rhombus?
Two angles are equal.
Congruent. A and C are
Well, they have four
They
equals.
They equal 360.
Yeah.
It what?
Equals 360.
Which means what can you do with it?
You can put it in triangles.
You can split it into two triangles. Pretend that's perfect.
It is
So
perfect.
if I split into two triangles, what do you know about A, B, and B, C?
They are.
They're equilateral. No, they're not. They are.
They are congruent. Why are they congruent? What do you know about a rhombus?
It's a triangle. No, wait, it has all the same sides.
The sides are the same, yes, the sides are the same, right? The sides are the same. So if I have this side, right, this side, this side, this side, and this side are the same, what happens when I draw that bisector down it?
You cut it in half.
Okay, so also on a rhombus, if you know that all the sides are equal, what does that mean about every angle?
Oh, equal.
So what would every angle be on a rhombus?
The same.
9:45.
No.
Oh, on a rhombus?
80.
90. No, wait, it wouldn't be 45 because it
They
equals.
want
It would be
90.
90.
It'd be 90.
It would be nine.
Rhombus? Wait, would it be 90?
60.
You know, I'm just gonna, I don't know, I'm asking.
Oh, wait a second.
I'll let you guys
So wait,
that.
what's the question again?
Selma working?
What would each angle of a rhombus be?
2 of them are
What are
80
you
and 2
telling us
of
we
them are
got it
100.
right?
2 are 80 and 2 are 100? Why do you say that?
Because I just did minus 10 to 2 of them. Because they're all equal 90 kind of because of a square.
Yeah, they're not
They
perfect, but
equal, no, so think of a square and then you just pull the sides a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you, so like you did like
Yeah.
minus 10 and plus 10 each. So
Okay, let me tell you another thing about a rhombus. Do you know what else happens with a rhombus?
I don't know.
It's a diamond.
Besides all the sides being congruent, what else happens with a rhombus? Think about how it's shaped.
It turns square.
It's kind of like a diamond.
Oh,
Like a,
it's
it's like
just
a form
like
square.
Steps up,
right?
like a diamond.
Listen, to what? Listen real quick.
All the lines are parallel.
Oh, Kanan,
That's
good.
very good, Kate.
So we know that this line and this line are parallel. We know that this line and this line are parallel to each other.
It looks like the.
Okay? So, if those lines are parallel, now what type of rules can we apply?
Wait, are they?
Now look at this.
We're gonna do the
Angle.
theorem.
Look
We
at
can do the
triangle,
thing.
look at triangle ADC. Just focus on that,
Okay.
okay? What do you know about AD and DC?
They're congruent.
They're congruent, which means what about angle DAC and angle
They're the
DCA?
same.
They're also congruent, right? Okay, so we know they have to be congruent at some point, correct? Okay, okay. So we gotta figure this out. So if I can tell you what the measure of angle A is, then you can tell me what the measure of angle ABC is.
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay, so how can you figure out what the measure of angle A is?
You just divide by
Fine.
180 by 3, right? Because they're all equal.
Divided by 4. It's
80,
4
80,
sides.
100.
40, 40.
A
Yeah,
and
but
C
there's
are
3 angles in a
congruent.
triangle.
Yeah.
It's 60.
But that's 60.
And if you have something that's
And it's
parallel.
it equals to 180, so it'd be,
They'd be the
so it'd
same.
be, it'll be 60. So they'll all be 60.
Do we know it's an equilateral triangle?
No, we just know all sides of them.
Well, it looks like one.
We know that A and C
No,
are
no.
equal.
Well, if you think about it, if all the lines are, if
What are you saying?
65.
I never know what I'm saying.
60.
Wait, is there an
Okay,
actual number for
okay.
this?
There are actual numbers,
If
yeah.
x plus x plus plus
There's only one
x,
answer?
No.
if x plus x plus x equals 180, then 3x equals 180, then 60 equals x.
Correct.
So I'm right.
But I need to know why you think it's an equilateral triangle.
Because if three sides of a triangle are congruent, then the,
Because
How do
they're
you know,
parallel.
time out, how do you know the third side's congruent?
cause math.
Cause it equals
80 and
180.
80 and 100.
You know that the triangle
Oh, if
equals
three
180,
angles
yes.
of a triangle are congruent,
It's a
the sides
bisector.
opposite of them are congruent.
Right, but do you know
Does
that
that help you?
angle A,
Because-
angle C, and angle D are congruent?
Yeah, I just said that with the 60-degree thing.
80, 50, 50?
I said 3x.
Yeah, but that doesn't, you didn't give me a rule to back that up, you just did
Um,
math. I can say 3x equals 180 also.
Fancy.
That doesn't mean I have a rule for it. The figure of a rhombus, all sides are congruent and opposite sides are parallel.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that comes into play sometime.
because of that.
See another inner.
The transitive property.
Because they're parallel, they are,
Stop guessing.
they're like this.
What do you know with parallel? What do you know about angles and parallel?
They parallel means
If
they
it's
never
perpendicular,
Never
intersect.
intersect.
parallel lines, then
Okay, keep going, they never intersect, but you have lots of rules
There's
about things
vertex
with parallels
angles.
and transversals.
Ooh,
Oh,
if
we
the
can do the
perpendicular
alternate,
cuts
we can do the
through
alternate,
parallel, the
we can
alternate
make, we can
interior
continue
angles.
that line.
You're like saying if I continue this,
Yes.
Alternate interior angles.
Continue ditch. And then continue the.
and then you can
Exterior.
pretend that it's crossing through stuff, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Kind of, okay, okay. So if something is parallel, then you know that their alternate interior angles are congruent, you know that their corresponding angles are congruent, you know that their consecutive angles have to be 180.
Yeah.
Yes, all that fun stuff, okay. Well,
And then you can do on the other parallel, you can make like a transversal, you can like do all this sort of stuff.
possibly.
That's what I would do. That's how I would do it.
That's how you would do it.
It's basically a transversal with an extra line, so it's like two pairs of parallel lines kind of
It works.
intersect.
Right, it is kind of like that, because your transversal is going through both sets of parallel lines, correct? Okay, so that means that this angle and this angle have to be congruent,
Yes.
yes? And that
Yes.
means that this angle and this angle have to be congruent, correct? Okay, and so if those angles have to be congruent, and I know that they don't add, let's just say this, I know that they don't add to be 180.
Why? A triangle always makes money.
I'm not talking about the triangle. These two angles don't add to be 180 because, look, if I continued this line down, right, you would still have this part out here, yes? Okay, but we know that that has to be congruent to that, which means this and this are congruent, okay? So let's say that that means if those bases are congruent, yes,
Yes.
and those sides are congruent,
Yes.
well, if these bases are congruent, then that means that this has to also be congruent to the sides.
Yes.
Meaning you have what type of triangle?
Equilateral.
Okay, but you needed to explain that to me in words.
Oh.
Wait, how does that have to be, why is
So
that?
instead of just doing the math, you also have to do,
Cause you have
it's like a
base,
paragraph,
Isn't it
base
bisect?
angles theorem,
like,
yeah.
like a
And it
paragraph.
bisects the same angles, so yes.
This is not on a scale, right?
Right.
Like a
Nothing ever is.
like a paragraph proof.
Yeah, or like a T-chart proof
And so-
either. So then, you know that angle D, okay?
Close enough.
If this is equilateral triangle, you know that D is 60, right?
Correct.
So you know
everything
this
else has
part
to be
is
60.
60, so what is angle A?
60.
Well, it's
No.
120.
What is angle A?
120.
120.
So angle A and angle C are 120.
So angle A and angle C are 120, and angle
Oh, yeah.
They're
A,
260.
B, C, or whatever, we didn't draw exactly the way they wanted us to do it. Angle, CD, or angle DAC is 60, yes? Angle DCA is 60,
Right.
okay? So you have to take that into consideration, do that one. Now,
Makes sense.
constructing an equilateral triangle.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, to construct an equilateral triangle, you must begin with a line segment. So I say get out some stuff and practice.
Chloe
Yeah.
doesn't have it.
I say.
I'd like to get out
Oh, no.
I don't have stuff. Yeah, me neither.
Equilateral triangle. Start with the line segment. Maybe, that's my marker over there. Okay. Line segment. AB. Okay, you start with a line segment. Then you make an arc from point A. You extend your compass to the length of AB, and you place your compass point at A, and you draw an arc. So you literally take your compass and stretch it as far as AB, and then you put your point of your compass at A, and you make an arc. A big arc. So the smaller you go, the easier this is.
Oh, yeah, it's in less big part.
Yeah. So then you make an arc, and then you're gonna flip it and make an arc on the other side, yes?
Yes.
How do you do this without making it shrink?
Without making it shrink.
Because like whenever I move it, my compass shrinks.
Yeah, it's because these compasses are cheap.
They are.
I don't like these ones compared to metal ones, that's why.
Should we get a metal
Metal
one?
one.
I couldn't find any metal ones.
Just
Okay, it's good.
Make it something just like.
it's gonna be rough. And then you're gonna come here and flip it, right? And do the same thing. Like I said, it's. Yes. This is not like the midpoint one where you're, I'm moving it, now I can tell. Pretend that's working.
It's perfect.
Okay, it's not like the midpoint one where you wanna go 2/3 the distance because you wanna,
I
okay?
don't like that the camera.
So then, after you do that, where they cross at the top or where they cross at the bottom, you can put your point C and then just play connect the dots,
Yeah.
okay? It's pretty simple. That one should be the easiest type of construction that you do. Also, on your test, it was really funny reading your instructions.
Wait.
The sharp
This is
tip.
each,
The sharp tip.
Go here.
Sharp.
And
That's what I
then-
put it in.
time out, what are you doing right now? Are you trying to make an equilateral triangle? Then listen to what I'm saying. Are you trying to make an equilateral triangle? What we just did, yes or no? Then you have to keep your compass spread the length of AB. That's not the length of AB. I can look at, there we go. Now make your arcs.
I figured out how to
Now
set
flip it
it.
so that the pencil's on the other side. There we
Look like this.
go.
Yeah.
Beautiful, yes,
Good job.
okay? So here's just the steps again broken down picture by picture. 1,
I just listened.
2, 3, 4.
Whoa.
Picture by picture. That is what you're focusing on today, okay? I have actual worksheets for you today. Thought I'd make it a little bit easier. Okay, it's dead so that it doesn't